Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're located around the world. Welcome to today's Scrum Pulse webinar. I'm Lindsay Vellicino with Scrum.org, and I'll be your moderator today. And I'm super excited to have with us two of our professional Scrum trainers, Magdalena Kucharska and Joanna Plaskonka. They are here to talk about a really important topic, how to improve communication and collaboration between developers and Scrum Masters, something that's probably burning on all of your minds. So let's move forward so we can dive in. So next slide, please. Just some quick reminders here. Your microphones will be muted throughout, but we do want you to ask your questions. So please utilize the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen for any questions that you have for Joanna and Magdalena. And if you have any technical questions, you can utilize the chat. We ask that you keep all of your questions for our presenters in the Q&A though, so that we can capture them all in the event we don't have time for all of your questions today. We will share our questions with our speakers here today so that we can figure out a way to address them in another way if we don't get to them. So, and this is also going to be recorded. So if you, for some reason, you can't stay the whole time, don't worry. And you'll be able to access the recording within 24 hours and also the slides. So with that, next slide, please. Okay, so just very quickly about Scrum.org, if you're not familiar, we are the home of Scrum. We were founded by Ken Schwaber in 2009, and our mission is to help people and teams solve complex problems. We offer training, certification, and ongoing learning, like this webinar, for Professional Scrum. And we invite you to check out all of our free learning resources on our website to help you continue your learning. We want you to continue your learning journey, no matter where you are on that journey. And I hope that this session today plays a big part in that. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Magdalena and Joanna.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lindsay, for introducing us, and welcome to everybody. I hope you'll get some information out of this webinar that you can instantly use in your own teams. So a bit about ourselves. My name is Magda. I've been a PST since last year. So a brand new, fresh PST. But I've been working in the business environment for more than 10 years in different companies, from companies in aviation, from telecoms to banking to gambling. So a lot of different companies that can include, and I'll talk about some of my experience in those companies and working with Scrum Masters also.
And my name is Joanna. I'm a PST for almost 2 years. So I had a chance to meet Magdalena some time ago, and we found a lot of interesting topics that we would like to share together. And this is one of the reasons why we are here. And when it comes to my background, my educational is about control engineering and robotics. So I'm an engineer. However, I worked in different companies, so different size, from startups, small, medium companies to big corporate ones, different products, different challenges, remote teams, co-located. So I hope that today, thanks to our joint effort and our common experience, we can share you some thoughts, some ideas, what to do when this communication in the Scrum team is not going well. So where did the idea for this particular webinar come from? So my background, as I already told you, is about engineering, and my first professional full-time job was in the IT/telecommunication area. I was a developer in the Scrum team, in the team that was actually learning about agility Scrum. And I realized that there are a lot of problems. When you are a developer, you want to do the right job. You are committed, you want to focus on creating the product. And sometimes you meet fantastic Scrum Masters that help you to do that. Sometimes you get, let's be honest, annoyed because of that communication. You feel that you cannot find a common ground, and seems that it's no longer an effective conflict, but instead the situation is moving more towards a fight that will most likely affect the product development process in a negative way. So together with Magda, we gathered all our ideas, experience, and to be honest, we are also acting as a Scrum Master, so we also took some of our sins. And based on that, we created a certain model to help you think about different behaviors, to show you different challenging communication problems, and how our presentation is organized.
So first of all, we are talking about some anti-patterns. And since those are anti-patterns that we kind of need to work on, we call them the patient. So we're talking about the Scrum Master as a patient and different anti-patterns of them. You may see some resemblance to the ones created by Barry Overeem. We kind of took a step back and tried to reinvent them based on our experience. So some of them might be similar, but the idea behind them and the way you can work with them is a bit different. And there's no shame in saying that we were those Scrum Masters that we are going to talk about, and we worked with developers in those kind of ways, and we'll try to give our allies ideas how to improve the communication. So the next step will be talking about the description of behaviors of those patients, and then some suggested remedies. So how to talk with them, how to work with them. So the first one we're going to focus on is going to be the patient Scrum Master artist. So imagine a Scrum Master who's probably freshly out of a Scrum course, that his main idea is to do a workshop and draw something. So whenever there's a problem in a team, imagine you have a problem, a conflict during a daily between developers, might not be a big conflict, maybe just resolving or revolving around the issue working on, but the Scrum Master comes in and says, no, you cannot talk about this right now. We have to talk about it in retrospective. And you say as a developer, but the retrospective is like a week ago, in a week's time or in 2 weeks, can we just talk about right now? And the Scrum Master goes, no, because that's why we have Scrum. We have retrospectives. You're not able to talk about it until we have the moment, until we gather a meeting with everybody, an event. But then you say, but this person is on a holiday and this conversation will take us like 10 or 15 minutes to resolve. And in our story, the Scrum Master is mainly confused about what's his value for the team. And his answer to everything is, let's take a step back and do a workshop. Why is actually this conflict happening? Right? So let's go back to the nature of things, to the Big Bang, and see and draw everything. So how do we approach this kind of Scrum Master as a developer? Because honestly, we don't have time to draw, I know, some colorful playbooks. So some of our ideas.
By the way, when it comes to drawing, you may see during our presentation some of the pictures, and they are AI generated. So we together with Magda, we can openly say that drawing, this is something that we can delegate, and you will see a lot of doctors there. So if you are thinking, who are those people there? They are doctors, and they are also coming to us with the hope that there is a remedy. And even if we face some difficulties in the communication within the Scrum team, there is possibly a chance to fix it quickly. This is a temporary thing. So what we should do what we could do to improve the situation as a developer. So from this perspective, what we can do. Our first, and I would say very generic piece of advice, is start with the right attitude. So we, as a Scrum team members, we are obliged to follow the same Scrum principles and values. And it's good to assume that even if you observe some ineffective behaviors in your Scrum Master, assuming that there's a good intention, it's a great starting point. So instead of thinking like we developers versus you Scrum Master and creating this artificial wall, to some extent forgetting that we are the Scrum team, is not the best approach to start. We strongly recommend to try to think, okay, there's a reason of someone's behavior. Let's focus on the intention. Let's focus on this willingness to find a solution.
Mm-hmm. The other approach that we might assume as a developer is to try to present other solutions and their advantages. For instance, maybe there's something else that we can do at the moment than what Scrum Master suggests. If a Scrum Master in my story tells us we need to meet in 2 weeks' time and draw something and take a step back, maybe we don't need to take a step back. Maybe we can take a solution that already worked for us in the previous situation and just apply it right there, right now, without reinventing the wheel again, right? So think about the other advantages and the disadvantage. The disadvantage of that approach would be, so if we meet in 2 weeks' time, the conflict may arise. It may involve more people, it may involve more time, or the other way, it might disappear at the surface, but somewhere still below the surface and then come back in the most unexpected time, right? And also disadvantage is that when you are focused on the issue you want to resolve at the moment and somebody tells you to wait, you just get frustrated as a person and you cannot focus on some other task that you have. So the disadvantage of that approach is also losing money for the company, because we are there actually to build a product. We have a purpose right there. So if we are wasting time on our frustrations because somebody tells us to acknowledge the process no matter what, we are actually losing value and valuability for our product. So it's also the argument that you can use.
And there's also, in my opinion, very great supportive tools that you can look for, and you will not find their names in the Scrum Guide. One that comes to my mind right now is, for instance, Cartesian questions. So those are questions: what will happen if we do that? What will not happen if we do that? And what will not happen if we don't do that, and so on. So feel free to look for such tools, such ideas. And those, I believe, are great complementary tools for Scrum teams, especially when it comes to communication, decision-making, solving such conflicts like we are describing. Third point, so sometimes I feel that there's a myth that we have Scrum Master in the team, so they are responsible for having the knowledge about Scrum, and developers can fully rely on them. Well, we would love to challenge that. If you want to be a member of the team, active member of the team, committed, open for any also challenging discussions, we believe that gaining the knowledge about Scrum, about Professional Scrum, about what Agile means and what it does not mean, will help you definitely, so that you can become a partner in conversations. When you do not know what you are talking about, then how would you like to have a good conversation when you do not have the common ground together with your Scrum Masters? Yes, Scrum Masters should possess the knowledge, but they are not the only ones responsible for gaining that.
Mm-hmm. The other approach that you can have is appreciate and recognize the commitment. Because this Scrum Master, if he works with you, if he wants to do the workshop on try to resolve the idea, go back to the roots of the problem, he actually wants to commit to helping you. He is not there to destroy your work and stop you from gaining more value to what you do. There's a reason behind that. So try to appreciate the commitment. Maybe try to refocus this commitment into something else. Right? If you want to work with us, if you want to go to the roots of the problem, maybe this exact problem is not something that we can work on because we can solve it on our own. Maybe there's something different, something deeper that you can work on. And this is the idea for you, right? So this is the topic you can focus on, to try to take this commitment and use it for your own purpose as a team member to help you create a better product.
No coincidence that commitment is one of Scrum values, by the way. Very powerful question. So we mentioned a minute ago, you have different tools. For instance, Cartesian questions, but one of my favorite that I would say that I ask myself
underappreciated
is the question why, just like that. Why? So, and I'm not telling you like be rude or just why is the only question to be used. Think about it as an invitation to show the other person, show your Scrum Master that you're curious, show them curiosity, show them your commitment to having this conversation, to finding a solution, to finding a way how you as a Scrum team can solve problem. And if you don't start with why, my experience is showing me quite often that the root cause of some of the problems might be because each of you in this conversation may have totally different problem in mind. All of them might be valid, all of them might be wrong, some of them might be valid, and so on. Possibilities are endless. It's good to have a common understanding why we should wait and draw, for instance. There are some teams that do not like drawing, and one of the techniques that I've seen was creating a one doc, like single source of truth, one online doc that consists everything that was happening in the team, notes from retrospective, from planning, and so on. And you know what? It worked for that particular team. They did not like drawing. And what I had to do, I had to accept that fact because they were still effective Scrum team.
Mm-hmm. And also to what Joanna said, sometimes what we want as a team is also what we want as a company. We want results, right? So when we always take a step back and try to overanalyze everything as a Scrum Master, we sometimes tend to forget the cause why we're doing it and what's the goal. And when we look at the next part, so make sure that your conversational partner feels a part of it, it pretty much means we have the same goal there. So if a Scrum Master wants us to do something as developers and we are trying to discuss and use the Cartesian technique or ask questions why, it's all because we want to break a valuable product. So we are there together as a team. We are not working in silos against each other. So in your conversation, make sure we are aware of the goal we are trying to reach there. It might be the product goal, maybe the sprint goal, maybe just your goal as a team goal for this moment, for this event, for this conversation. But make sure you're on the same page with what you're working on.
Before we move forward, we actually have a couple questions. We have one clarifying question that came in from a few people. Can you both share that additional resource you mentioned to help with communication? It was
Cartesian technique.
Cartesian technique. Okay.
Yes, of course. Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who asked, it's Cartesian technique. There were a few people that asked about that. And then there's a question that came in here that's pretty relevant. When resolving a conflict, should we take people apart or put them together to help solve among themselves? What should be my role or steps as a Scrum Master? So I think
wonderful question.
Yeah, the consultant's answer comes to mind. It depends.
Yeah.
But usually when it involves two people, then the solution should also involve two people. So if the conflict involves people, you need them together to create a solution for it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, Joanna, would you like that?
Yes, and there's additional resource that I can recommend when it comes to conflict. There's this model 5 dysfunction of the team, and second dysfunction is regarding conflict. So it's lack of skills to take advantage of good conflict. And there are 2 books. One is about dysfunction, and the second one is overcoming 5 dysfunctions. And there are some exercises there. There are some suggestions there, and I believe they might be a great source of knowledge. How to talk about conflict, what you can do to be better as a team in the conflict. So in general, fantastic topic. I think we could
we can
make a separate webinar.
Yes, the author is Patrick Lencioni.
Yeah,
just so
I
you know
dropped a
for
link.
the reference. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so
Okay.
maybe let's move on.
Yes.
It's good that we got some questions.
Fantastic. Yeah, so the second patient, Scrum Master, the interviewer. So this is the Scrum Master that may have misunderstanding what a good facilitation is. For instance, facilitation of conflict, by the way. However, it might be very common case that I was able to observe. We have daily Scrum, so daily Scrum is for developers. Scrum Master can help facilitate, right? This is nothing wrong with that. So Scrum Master comes and everything is handled in the same way. Question from Scrum Master, answer to the Scrum Master. And the whole event is done in the following way. So this pattern may repeat during different Scrum events, during some additional meetings. What is even worse, some of the Scrum Masters ask a lot of questions during the day, during someone's focus time. They think that they are trying to help. The fact is, if there's a lot of such questions, they are interrupting focus time. They are making work of Scrum team developer difficult. And we called this disease, this sickness questionnaire. So the strong need of asking questions either to facilitate or to look for different answers, because this is what we do, right? Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, different experts. We ask a lot of questions, right?
There's a time, a place for every question. So, suggested remedy, one of my favorite questions is pay attention to cost versus profit. For instance, if I'm answering a question for you, Scrum Master, what am I not doing right now? Does your answer to the question is more important for the product than me working on my own task, on my own bringing value? So maybe if this question is very important, we can schedule a moment after daily, at the end of the day, whatever time that suits you. This will be our, let's say, question time, our talking time, one-on-one, when we go through the questions that you have regarding my work, product, or the team. But this is my concentration time. So you're wasting the time of a product when you come and ask questions all the time, even though you may have good intentions because you just want to understand. But this is not the time and place.
Second advice is related to form of the questions. Maybe let's go even more into more details about the theme, about the value that Scrum Master is expecting from that question. Because looking for the answers for those questions that I just asked out loud might help you find a way how to manage this. Because we are not saying that asking questions is wrong. Actually, we are suggesting you to ask certain questions. The problem is, as Magdalena already told us, benefits, costs, how to do that, effectiveness. It's not like 100% no meetings, no talking, right? So we have to find this best place for us where we want to land. And obviously, again, we have even such metrics in evidence-based management related to focus. So distractions, yes, we know that there are some research that show this might affect your team a lot. So finding the way how to communicate, how to address questions. Well, maybe they do not need to ask. Maybe it's a matter of transparency. First pillar of Scrum. And maybe there are different things that you can do together as a team to address a certain need that is expressed through those coming questions.
I'd say also very important is to know why is this person coming to you with the question. So again, the most powerful question will be why. Why do you need this answer right now? And why do you need this answer at all? Is it just for your benefit, which is totally fine, maybe it can wait, or maybe you need it because something else is stopped or is blocked by me not giving you this answer. So try to understand why is this important? Why is this so important that you need to stop my job, my work right now in this instance? Right? Why cannot you approach me on a coffee break? So what's the reason?
And when it comes to those questions, it might be a very good topic for working agreements, either creating your working agreements for the team or inspecting current ones and adapting. Okay, so you observe that there is a certain need for communication, for sharing knowledge, for discussions. Maybe we should think how to make certain decisions and update our working agreements.
One of the tips I also saw, one of my teams, the idea was that between certain times during the day, for instance, for an hour or 2 hours between 10 or 12 a.m., they actually 12 p.m. Sorry, they had a concentration time, no questions time. That was the time for the Scrum team, mostly developers, just to work on their own. Also, the product owner, Scrum Master, just focus on your own work, and the questions might come later. That's just one of the working agreements that you can have.
So as you can see, questions might be great. How to handle those questions might be a separate, in certain cases, important topic to address.
And speaking of questions, we have a lot of questions that are coming in.
Okay, so let's go back to a slide. Yeah.
So if you want to go back to the slide real quick, there's one that I'm going to ask now, and please keep your questions coming. We are going to figure out a way to address questions after the session too. If we don't have time to get to them all today, we may have time at the end too, but just, I don't want anybody to be discouraged. This one, it comes from an anonymous attendee. They say, I am a Scrum Master and I am finding it difficult to find common grounds with a developer. Very blunt, admitted they do not like superficial chat. I get the impression they want to do their work and go home. How do I overcome this?
I love that one. Been there, so I can fully relate to that. And I think that we have first another very interesting topic, but we have some of the answers actually in Scrum framework itself, because we are talking about the Scrum team. And in that case, I would ask myself whether this team has clear goals. What helps me to feel a part of the Scrum team is having a clear understanding of our product goal, our sprint goal. How can I contribute? We are in this together, working on them. Scrum values are something that helps us identify ourselves as a team group of professionals. So one of the most powerful things that works for me, talking about goals in terms of the product, talking how we can join our efforts to make the best possible things. And I guess that we are also touching some other additional topics, also interesting ones, how to build a relationship with someone who's doing totally different things. So yeah, I would say a totally valid topic. And there's a lot of things that that we can touch. So Magda, maybe you have some short.
Actually, I think we will kind of address this issue a bit later in our presentation, because we'll be talking about different ways to approach different conflicts. Now, conflicts is not the right word, but different ways of working. And I think we might touch some of those, because the questions are regarding teams are mostly context-based. And we do not really know the context. So this is why pretty much the general answer.
Yeah, so yeah, that I also feel a bit uncomfortable with such a generic question, because I would love to speak for 1 hour right now.
That's like 1 hour into your deep context question, which we'd love to address.
But I can promise that we will try. We will try to touch those questions into more details. There most likely will be some stories, and that's why I'm a bit reluctant into going into my stories, because I know myself.
Yeah, Joanna will not stop. I mean, this will be like take the rest of it. So,
yeah, so
let's move on to the next one if we can.
Yes,
and then
I
we'll
hope.
happily answer any questions that you have by the time that we finish. So the next one is actually one of my favorite ones. It's Scrum Master Guide, and the disease is called Scrum Guidosis. So this is the Scrum Master that has an answer for everything. That says it's in the Scrum Guide. But just to be clear, nobody answers like that, right? Usually there's like an answer. For instance, when you ask as a developer, why do we need to have a definition of done? And the Scrum Master goes, it's for the quality. We need to have a quality, and the DoD helps us with quality. And you say as a developer, but is this really the only way that we can work and talk about the quality? And then the Scrum Master goes, but the Scrum Guide says so. So we are talking about the Scrum Guidosis. So whenever you don't have a professional knowledge of why something is important, you go back into the Scrum Guide. And the next slide will be some of our ideas how to work with this kind of a Scrum Master developer, the one that goes to the Scrum Guide for every answer.
Yeah, the disease is called Scrum Guidosis, and you can imagine a person that instead of head, they have Scrum Guide.
And just so you know, we are talking from our experience, and I can say from my own, I've been a Scrum Master for my first 6 months. I thought the Scrum Guide, like the answer, it's in the Scrum Guide, that's enough. So I was there. I was this pain in somewhere place, Scrum Master.
Yeah, I can relate to that also, especially at the very beginning, when you think you know what you're doing, and then you're discovering that if you are doing just Scrum, then probably you will be missing a lot of answers for specific questions, specific problems. Remedy. So first one is again questions. We told you questions are important part. So questions about value. This is the first piece of advice that we would like to give you. So if you have those conversations, like, okay, this is in the Scrum Guide, what is the value of that? Maybe let's use more examples. Daily Scrum, it lasted 17 minutes. And the Scrum Master that is, strictly according to the Scrum Guide will shout like, hey, 15 minutes, right? But let's be honest, if it's just 16 minutes and it's kept within the time box, what's the big deal? However, there is an issue. So what is the value of that you interrupt our meeting and just finish? You do not allow us to finish the last thought. Okay, what will be the value for you, for the team, for the product, if we just randomly stop our conversation? How we will become better? What will be improved if we just 15 minutes, tick, 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 and we finish the meeting? Because and we again would love to inspire you a bit with evidence-based management thinking. What kind of hypothesis do you have in mind? What do we want to verify? What is the hypothesis? Okay, is it that we are losing something because we are extending a time box a bit? Or is it that you see some other challenges? What is the hypothesis? So think about different solutions that are on the table, and you may be surprised how in different situations you can use different approach, like for instance EBM with value, with hypothesis, with different metrics.
Yes, and now we touched a bigger topic called metrics. So I often see Scrum Masters that work on usually they just say, I feel like, my opinion is, I kind of feel like you should do this and that. And as a developer, the first answer I would say is, where do you have the data for that? Why do you think we should have shorter events? Why do you think we have like longer time boxes, shorter time boxes? Why do you think we should resolve this kind of an issue in 1 week time and not right now? Where's the data to support that? So I would advise you to focus on the data, because we do not work on opinions or how do we feel about them. We need to have general data. And also, if we have data, just to make sure how do we know if this change makes sense, right? Because if let's use the example that Joanna gave us, 60 minutes, and we focus on 15 minutes daily because we need to be 15 minutes. So if we have 15 minutes instead of 16, does it make a change, really? What does it change? Like, we cut 1 minute off, does it give us anything, right? And when we start measuring, there's also a very nice question that I like to ask everybody is, when will we know that this hypothesis that our change made sense, right? So we need to, for instance, if we try to measure something, let's say in 2 weeks' time, we see if our change made sense, right? So if we cut our daily, let's see what changed, but we need to have data for that, right? So do it for a sprint, 2 sprints, whatever, but gather some data and then suggest a change. Because when you don't have data, you cannot have the inspect and adapt process. You may have transparency, but there's no way to do an inspection to that. When you have an inspection, you don't have adaptation, right? So our pillars just crumble.
And another tool that you might want to Google for, there are different canvas available created by wise, kind people who offer to give it to the community. And some of the teams use experiment canvas to create clearly hypotheses, and this hypothesis is not only related to the product, because this is one of the examples how we can use that. You can also formulate hypothesis as the outcome of your discussion, whether our meeting is effective or not. And you can conduct an experiment, plan an experiment, use data to assess that, and ta-da, you are no longer a person with opinion. You have data that you can use to make decisions. Okay. Magda's favorite. So, Magda, would you love to tell us
yes,
about that
we
patient?
are still in the metrics, right? So we have Scrum Master, the speedometer. So somebody told our Scrum Master, you need to measure something, right? As we just did a moment ago, you need to have data. So what can the Scrum Master measure? He can measure velocity. Why can he measure velocity? Because Jira does this for him, right? So he can generate a report and he knows everything. And somebody told our Scrum Master that velocity needs to rise. Every sprint, it needs to be better until the end of time when it reaches the number that you cannot even pronounce. So our Scrum Master comes with the "we love city" kind of a stance. So how to work with the Scrum Master that tells us all the time we need to have a better velocity?
So, suggested remedies. Ask questions about validity of that. And if you are familiar with different discussions, maybe on LinkedIn, maybe you've seen some discussions in Scrum.org forum, you will observe that many people are angry about velocity. There's, hot topic. If you want to have tough conversation, challenging one, let's start talking about velocity. And to be honest, the problem with velocity, in my view, that this is one of the vanity metrics that you can easily show good results. You can easily manipulate that. You can make some decisions based on that. While in fact, if you treat it as the only metric, let's say the queen of metrics, Houston, you may have a problem, because velocity does not bring value when it comes to talking about product value, about value delivered. So you are missing a lot of different metrics that might be more valuable for you and your team. It might be more difficult to measure. Okay, that's fine, but maybe it's worth it to focus on that things. And what is more, maybe there are other ways.
Maybe there are some other metrics that you can use that can actually tell us something about the value of the product that you give. Maybe some metric that regarding the customers, the clients, not only the way you perform as a team, which is good for you as a team, but tells us nothing about the product. Or are our clients happy? We don't know. We just bring it very fast. We bring a lot of things, a lot of tasks, and they bring them very fast. But are the clients happy? We don't know. So as a developer, let's refocus the attention of our Scrum Master to the metrics that actually make sense to our product. Not only team, the teams are good. Like, we don't want you to think that this is not a good metric to start with. To start with is good, but tells us nothing about the value. And also, when we talk about the metrics, there's like the next part. We need to always focus on 4 questions when we talk about the metrics. So what are we measuring? Why are we measuring this? What for? And what's next? So why are we measuring whatever we measure? What for? What's next, right? The third one, the last one, what's next, is the most important one. So if we gather this data, it's easy to say, let's gather data. Then we have a lot of data, a lot of numbers. So the question is, as a developer, what do we do with those numbers? How do we want to inspect and adapt them? What do you want to do with them, Scrum Master, instead of just gathering in your very big Excel spreadsheet that shows you all the metrics from the last year? Do you actually do something with them? Do you inspect towards them? Maybe it's better to just choose one for a moment and then go over to the next ones.
And here comes another alert for you. Be careful with over creation of different dashboards, because what we observed, and I think that Magdalena and I share the same, is that it's easy to end up with hundreds of numbers, and transparency of that is decreasing over time. And when you are in the middle of the process, it's good exercise to ask some of the people working within the Scrum team, maybe ask stakeholders during sprint review, do you understand those numbers? What are the ideas come to your mind when you look at the numbers? Terrible thing that may happen, and we encourage you, no matter if you are Scrum Master or you're a developer, product owner in the Scrum team, try to avoid over creation of dashboards and data, because you may end up with a mess, and no valuable outcome out of it is coming.
I just came up with another Scrum dashboard lover.
You see, we have to improve that.
We have to improve it in the next presentation.
So we have another stance, another patient dashboard lover. So we are starting now. We will have 2 patients. They may seem similar. However, there is an important difference when it comes to their focus. So the first one is Scrum Parent. So Scrum Parent is thinking a lot about emotions, about atmosphere. Scrum Master is very protective, and they really care about their team. They care about every single developer and the team as a whole, and they may end up with this helper syndrome, in the sense that I will do it for you because I don't want anyone to do you any harm. Magda, I've seen that Tomek did not react to your request. I will talk to Tomek. I will help that, because I care. You should feel comfortable. Tomek should understand your feelings, right? We should have a positive atmosphere in our Scrum team. So this patient, as you can imagine, may block our self-management, self-organization in the Scrum team. And as you can imagine, we are touching Scrum principles. This may be both not effective, especially long-term for the Scrum team, but also some people may feel like they are not treated like adults. Hey, I want to make decisions. I can talk to Tomek. Why you are willing to do it for me, right? So how do we handle Scrum Parent? What we can do?
Well, we can appreciate what they do, right? Because they come from good intentions. Their idea comes from a very good heart of wanting to help you. But to be honest, those people, those Scrum Masters, they want to help you, but they don't know how. They probably came out of a course, Scrum Master course. Maybe they've worked in one team or the other team, but the only thing that they can do is I mean, schedule Outlook meetings, books some rooms, maybe, I know, write some notes or agendas. They really, really want to help. They just don't know how. But they're so, I'm talking from developer perspective, they're so annoying in wanting to help us. So the idea would be try to refocus them, give them something what to do, right? Appreciate. Yes, we can see you, Scrum Master, we can see you want to help, but please do not tackle my problems for me, because there are more important issues. Maybe our environment is not working. Maybe our technical debt is making drown our product. Maybe there are some other issues you can help with that we cannot tackle on our own in this instant. Maybe you can work towards them. Maybe you can help bring us the vision, the mission of our product, because maybe some of our product owner doesn't have an idea how to approach this. We can schedule our own meetings. Right? We don't need a mom, we don't need a parent, a dad, a caretaker, or whatever. We need a Scrum Master. We need someone who's a master of Scrum. It's in the name.
Exactly. And when we are talking about Scrum, its principles, self-management needs a space. So to learn, to be able to inspect, adapt, we need a place, we need possibilities to make mistakes, to make decisions, to learn based on what we decided. This is a part of developers' accountability to manage sprint backlog, to make decisions, right? It's also a good moment when you appreciate, when you help Scrum Master discover the way how to support you, is to tell them, we need the space to learn. We need to be able to make certain decisions on our own, because we want to develop ourselves. This continuous learning is an important part for every Scrum team. With Scrum Parent, it might be difficult to learn, to become better and better.
And also, just one liner, for everything that you do for your Scrum team, you take away what Scrum can give them. So if you're doing something that takes self-organization, self-management, they will never learn to self-manage. So you're actually, as a Scrum Master, you're taking away the Scrum.
That's sad, right? We are master of Scrum, and sometimes we may forget that Scrum is not us. We are not Scrum. We are master of Scrum. Okay, and I promise that we will have similar patients. So our next patient is called Super Scrum Master. And we have a difference here, because this is also a helper. This is also someone who wants to support team, who wants to jump in, challenges, problems. Yes, give me more. However, I would say that there's a difference in focus, in their thinking, in the needs that they have. So Super Scrum Master, they want to be needed. So they perceive any kind of problems, challenges that appear as opportunity to prove that they are doing a good job. So again, intention, well, everyone needs some motivation, right? Some motivational boost. In their case, they are thinking about opportunities to prove that they deserve to be there, that they are doing a good job. So what to do with such patient?
Well, you can try to tell them what emotions it causes in you. We just kind of gave you a format that you can use. When I hear you do this, when I see you do this, could you, instead of that, do this? For instance, when I see you come approach me, want to help me, I feel like you're not treating me as a professional for what I'm hired for, because I am a professional. Could you instead focus on something else, right? But the difference is we try to refocus them, but based on our feelings of emotions, what it takes away from us. right? How it makes us perceive as a professional.
So another question, a lot of questions today, right? Another question worth asking, I would say quite similar to one of Cartesian ones. So if you are doing something, then most likely you will not have time and space for doing something else. So if you are fighting with things like communication between developers that they can just talk because they know how to talk, they know each other, there are most likely bigger problems somewhere, or maybe some other opportunities that they will bring value. You can support product owner. You can go outside of your team, because as a Scrum Master, we are also accountable for helping the whole environment, the whole organization to become great, focused on value created. So maybe there are some totally different challenges waiting for you, where you can contribute, where you can do great value, and also satisfy that need that you need a purpose in your daily work.
Is this the most efficient way you can use your time, dear Scrum Master? That's an actual question you can ask as a developer. What else can you do that brings more value? Because scheduling a meeting does not.
Yeah.
It just comes up to the next one, helps pop other areas that need support.
And please remember, sorry, Magda.
Go ahead.
Please remember, what we start our webinar with is that most likely when you as a developer, you are in such situation, not nice emotions will start to play, right? So annoyance, being angry, frustrated, and so on. So this is also really important in all those situations, that you will also use your body language and try to really show that you care. You are here for yourself, for that person, for the problem that you're facing. And maybe you can even try to do such exercise with a mirror. If you ask, what are you not doing? Instead of, well, you know what? Maybe there are different things. Where are you not right now when you are with us, solving such problems that, we should do by ourselves,
Are not really
right?
problems, right? Are not really problems.
So the way how you will behave and communicate, your body language. So again, we are touching a lot of things, I guess, today, but many things may count in this communication and collaboration. And remember that we are talking about humans, about professionals, and we have great possibilities, but we have also some challenges as human beings. We can show with our face how angry we are, and it unfortunately may also affect the collaboration.
It's okay to be angry, right? But it's not okay to use it in a sentence. Okay, so we can, I'm looking at the time, so we're quite finishing. So maybe last but not the least. So our title, like previously of this presentation, was I just want to do my job, because that's the sentence we heard as a Scrum Masters very, very often. I just want to do my job. So instead of that, as a developer, we kind of advise you maybe to use some other wordings, because when you say, I just want to do my job, it could be understood as, I don't care what you come with. I don't care about your opinion, your product, your problem, your user, your whole Scrum. I don't care about your Scrum. I just want to do my job. So instead, let's just say, what do you actually want to work on? Let's say I want to focus on what brings value. Let's make a change together. Let's think about how we can bring value to our client, because this is why we exist as a team, to bring value to our customer, to answer the needs of him, the needs of the product of our customer.
And this is the end of what we wanted to present to you today. And we still have a few minutes for questions.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions here. This question comes from Selma, and they ask, when you execute two roles, Scrum Master and part of the team, how do you differentiate the two? How do you overcome that challenge where developers see you as a Scrum Master, but you are actually doing the work as a team member?
That's a very good question, because in Scrum we have accountabilities. We don't have different profession, different roles.
Right.
However, from my experience, all of those accountabilities have different goals and different intentions. For instance, the Scrum Master's accountability is to make sure the Scrum is understood and complied to, and make sure everybody knows why and what we are doing. But as a developer, our focus is to bring the valuable product. So from my experience, it's really hard to tackle both of them when you have different intentions towards. But I know Joanna was in a situation like that, so I'm just giving you the general answer. And now to Joanna, who actually was in this position.
I was in that position, and I also have my special hat. So fun fact, and it worked in certain situations, I'm using something to differentiate and show myself and others that I'm changing the position. So now I'm a developer, now I'm a Scrum Master. So there are different ideas how to do such things, in your head, but you can do it literally. And some people really appreciate that, to be honest. And the second thing, I believe that what was changed in Scrum Guide 2020 was important, because to answer that question, in many of the cases, you have no longer this is product owner or developers or someone. Some of the accountabilities are together as a Scrum team. There's more of Scrum team now in the Scrum Guide than just Scrum Master, product owner, and developer. And I think it emphasizes that no matter what are your talents, in the end, all of us should feel ashamed if we are not following professionalism, and if we do not have increment to show, for instance, our stakeholders. So for me, it helped me a lot when I did not focus too much on, what is my accountability now and then. The most important was, what is our product? Is our customer happy? What do our stakeholders think? And it makes, to some extent, it's a blurry thing. And it might sound like a challenge, but you know what? We were in this together as a team, and working as a team, thinking like we all care, helped a lot. I don't know if you're happy with that answer, but that's my story. Finally, it was totally blurred. Who am I? The most important thing was, I'm a team member. I feel responsible for our customers, for our stakeholders.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So we have 2 minutes left. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to close. So there were a few questions about metrics that had come in. Do you have some examples of team metrics that you found useful?
Yes, I have one that's actually my favorite one, is the interruption metric. How many times somebody interrupted my team on their concentration time? And then when we measured how many times the team was interrupted with a question outside of the team, that's important, it's outside of the team, we added it up by the end of the sprint, and it showed that we were interrupted, for instance, for 4 hours a sprint, which means for 4 hours, we were just solely answering questions to other people. And when we gathered that data after a few sprints, the number just kept growing and growing. So it allowed us, for instance, as a team, to come up with an answer for make one person responsible for the communication within the team per sprint, right? And this person was, for instance, answering emails, answering communications that handled the communication outside of the team, so the others can focus. That's one of the metrics that we used. Joanna, do you have your favorite one? Do you have a favorite one?
I have one similar. We call it focus time. So we measure our ability to have uninterrupted time slots. So that works pretty well, and it's similar and consistent with what Magda just said. I'm also a big fan of flow metrics. So instead of measuring velocity as the queen, measuring the flow, measuring different cycle times, measuring WIP. So I think this is something that may give you some hints, some ideas, transparency, what's happening inside. And I think that what Kanban brings, properly implemented Kanban together with Professional Scrum, is opening a lot of useful metrics for the team.
Those are some great ideas there. Thank you both so much. Unfortunately, we are at our time. Thank you all for sticking with us and for all of the great questions. Like I said, we're going to figure out a way to address the unanswered questions. So don't worry about that. And we'll also be sharing the recording and the slides as well. And those will be up within 24 hours. And if you just want to flick to the closing slide, that would be great. You can just flick to the next slide. I'll mention the Learning Paths. So we do have some Learning Paths on the Scrum.org website. Feel free to check those out. And also, please stay connected with us through our social media channels. And we also have these Scrum Pulse webinars as well as Ask a PST webinars. Magda and Joanna will actually be back with us in March for a Ask a Professional Scrum Trainer session. So please go to scrum.org/webcasts. You can access the registration there and you can join them for a Q&A session. And that whole session will be dedicated to questions. So thank you both, Magda and Joanna, so much for giving us your time today and sharing your stories. This was a great knowledge share session. And thank you to our audience for joining us. And scrum on and have a great rest of your day or evening. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.